Hey, Nic Peterson here, and I'm going to talk about overcoming overwhelm, especially when your business is scaling. Okay, it's really easy to start kind of losing control of stuff, and that's what I do. Right, I take people that have had success in business. They want more of it. They've been able to do six, seven, sometimes mid seven figures, and they're looking to get to high six, seven, or eight, and they're a little overwhelmed, right? Because when you first start, it's all about forcing growth. It's about going from 0 to 1, which requires you to create something new. And that's great. A lot of people have done it really successfully. And then they don't realize that as your business grows, okay, and it starts to expand and become decentralized a little bit, that it starts to get overwhelming trying to control all these things, right? You do this thing over here, that thing over there. You're putting out fires all the time. You're wearing all these hats. And typically what people do is they say build systems, systems. And I'm telling you, just straight up, waterfall systems is not the way to go. I'm going to tell you why. It is equally overwhelming to have to document all this stuff when you don't even know what the stuff is that you have to do. And this comes from a starter personality, right? Somebody that most of you watching probably launched your business. You're a starter and you know how to go, right? You know how to put your foot on the gas. That's why you are where you're at. Now, the thing is, when you get to high six or seven figures, it's no longer about putting your foot on the gas, okay? It's about, if you want to continue moving forward, it's about taking your foot off the brake. So what most people are doing when they get to high six, seven figures is they're pushing, and it's all this force, and it's creating counter force. It's kind of like a Chinese finger trap, right? The harder you try, the more diminished your attempts become. And that is because at scale, right, it's about removing the limiting factor. So here's how you prevent and overcome overwhelm, okay? Instead of how do I grow more, how do I force growth? How do I build systems? How do I hire more people? Because those are all arbitrary things, right? Unless they're not. I'm going to tell you how to tell if they're not. You say, what is the limiting? The mindset has to be between you, your C-suite, whoever you trust, right? The decision makers, your organization. You say, what is the limiting factor? What is the limit to our growth? Okay? And you comb through and you say, our marketing's okay, our sales is okay, we're having fulfillment issues. We're not onboarding people fast enough, and that's the friction point. So instead of putting fire on everything else, pedal to the metal, let's take our foot off the brake there. Because putting pedal to the metal everywhere else where you have very clearly your foot on the brake somewhere is not super efficient. And so you prevent overwhelm by saying, what is the limiting factor in our business? Right now, it's our client onboarding, or right now, it's our close percentage, or right now, it's the number of leads. Right now, it's our profit margin, whatever it may be. Okay, and you identify the one single limit to growth. Now, if you have departments, maybe you have a marketing department and an operating department, right? So you have a chief marketing officer and a COO. They can deal with separately the limit to growth for marketing and the limit to growth for operations. So you got two. But let's just assume in this case there's one. So what's the limit to growth? It is our close percentage. Okay, that is the biggest limit to our growth. That is where our foot is on the brake. Okay, and then you prioritize all those overwhelming things you have to do. We got to hire somebody for back-end fulfillment. We got to do this thing. We got to build a new webinar. We have to create an employee training handbook. We have to do all these things, right? And then we go back and we say, what was the limiting factor? Close percentage. That's where the foot is on the brake. And the highest leverage thing, if you want to move forward, is always to remove friction first, via negativa, addition by subtraction. Okay? So, in this case, we say these are the priorities that we were all thinking about, right? Because your operating people and your marketing people and your employees, they're all going to say you have different limits. It's overwhelming because you got all this stuff to do. Go back to the limiting factor, close percentage in this case, And that's your filter. So you have your priority list. Does this directly affect our close percentage? If not, we don't do it this week. What about this? We don't do it this week. What about this? We don't do it this week. What about this? Yep, that's going to affect our close percentage. This might improve our close percentage. Listening to more sales calls, spending more time with our salespeople. Yep, that is going to eliminate the limiting factor. So you spend the week or the month or whatever dedicated time period with everybody rowing in the same direction, eliminating that limit to growth, building a system around it so you never have to do it again and it doesn't happen again, right? It improves itself. And then identifying the next limit to growth. List out your prioritize, list out your priorities, run them through the filter that is your limit to growth, and then do the thing and build the system. And what happens is instead of just sitting down and getting overwhelmed with all of these systems and all of these tasks, all you are doing is as you're moving, you're removing the limit. And then you're removing the next limit, you're removing the next limit. And each time you're building a system, eventually your entire business is systematized and it's done in a way that you never lose momentum. It's highest leverage thing at the time it needs to be done. It's not just sit down and do it all, because that is equally overwhelming, right? So that's how you eliminate overwhelm, is by identifying the limit to growth, where your foot's on the brake, right? Let me know if that makes sense. And then you list all the priority. You can listen to your whole team. What do you guys think is important? And you list it all out, and then you filter it through, is this a limit to growth? If not, we address it later. Now, if you have a ton of extra bandwidth, you can address those other things. But again, I would address the second limiting factor, right? And this way we never lose momentum, and we're always getting the most out of our time. Because if our limit is our close percentage, and we have people on our team that are focused on building an employee handbook, and we don't even have employees because we can't close, this is wasted energy over here, right? So you want everybody rowing in the same direction, doing the highest leverage thing at all times. And the best way to frame that for me is take your foot off the brake. You want to go forward, don't force it. If you got the foot on the brake, take it off. So hopefully that's useful. Easiest way to prevent overwhelm, we do it weekly. We do rounds. We say, what's the limiting factor? We only have room for 3 more high-level clients. That's our limiting factor. And we'll say, okay, here's all the priorities in our business. And we run it through this filter. Does this allow us to take more clients? No. Okay, not a priority. Does this allow us to take more clients? No, not a priority. Does this allow us to take more clients? Yes. Boom, we're doing that this week, right? And then we do it. We build a system around it. We adapt and we learn as an organization. And then we attack the next limiting factor. And overwhelm is gone overnight. Hopefully that's useful. I know overwhelm's a big thing. It's kind of part of entrepreneurship. It's part of owning a business. We can mitigate it with this little method. Just filter through, use the limit to growth as a filter so you know what to do.